everybody, how's it going? Rob Cosler here, MotoLabDirtBikes.com. So suspension is one of the most important things you want to pay attention to. Having it sprung properly to ensure you got the proper geometry will affect not only braking, acceleration, handling, cornering. It's very important. So what we have here is a 2017 completely stock KTM 250 EXC-F. What we've done is made a couple of quick changes to show you some of the don'ts of lowering, not only in the name of safety, but performance as well. Some of the dangerous common things we'll see is hiking the forks up in the triple clamps. And the reason why this is not a good idea to do is you're actually changing the geometry of the front end. By raising that up, you're changing the imaginary center line through the middle of the forks, and right where that meets the imaginary center line to the ground through the axle, which is called the trail. That's changing all that geometry up front. And I've seen even extreme applications where there'll be bar risers installed and they'll be hiked up even farther. Well, that's out of the clamping zone where they're originally engineered and intended. So that's sketchy on many levels. Definitely want to steer away from that. And another one, and actually it's a fairly common question that we get asked about the rear. Why can't I just unwind the spring to let tension off the rear to lower it? Well, this may be an eye-opener for you. We're going to gently lift this up and show you, because see that spring just flopping out there in the wind? Well, what happens is, you can imagine, if you hit a bump, stump, jump, and that suspension comes unloaded, that spring's going to just go sideways in there and just chew up the collars and permanently damage your suspension components. Definitely not a good idea. Secondly, what that also affects is, especially on this bike, is it has a progressive damping system, which means the shock is mounted right to the swing arm, and it uses a series of pistons to make the suspension action progressive. So what happens is it prematurely engages that secondary piston and makes it harsh and hacky, and not to mention it's full on choppered out, so there's no pressure on the front end, so it's going to push and through turns and just handle like absolute crap. Now, if you have a bike with linkage, yes, it is going to lower the bike, but it does nothing to limit the overall travel. And I've seen in extreme cases where the tire will bust through the rear fender or even inside the airbox. And another huge factor that a lowering link does, so it changes the geometry of the suspension, and it actually makes the initial part, the initial stroke of the shocks differ too. So it's really going to diminish your ride quality greatly. Some other things where there's installation kits to offset the mounting points. Therefore, again, changing the geometry of the bike, not a good idea. You don't want to start relocating components and stuff. What you can do is, one of the do's of lowering is just send it in to us or have your local professional install one of our kits, the Moto Lab lowering kits. And what this does is lowers the bike properly internally, so you're just limiting the return travel via spacers and shorter fork springs up front. And of course, they're going to make valving adjustments. If you're not 175 pounds, what this thing was designed for, it's not going to work ideal. Start changing spring rates, and obviously, if you're out of the weight range, it's not going to be ideal either. So the rear, same thing, via internal spacers. Nothing's ever permanently modified, and you maintain all those factory mounting points, and that allows you to keep the geometry, keep the ride quality by doing so, and that's definitely your best bet when it comes to lowering the bike. We often get asked, well, how much lowering is good for me? Well, that's greatly going to depend on your comfort zone. So figure out what's best for you. Now, if you're within the weight range of the stock spring, what you could do is sit on the bike and then stack up blocks of wood until you reach your comfort zone, and then you'll be able to measure those blocks of wood and then figure out what lowering works best for you. If you're out of the weight range, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, just due to the fact it was the spring might be under sprung. So what happens is you sit on it and you're going to get inconsistent results by just blowing right through it. So feel free to contact us. We have a lot of good information that we'd love to pass on to you, and just to help educate you and make your most and best informed decision. Shoot us a call, 928-362-1486, or email us at info@motolabdirtbikes.com.